All right, guys, last time we went over classifying angles. We had two lines. We had a line intersecting them called a transversal. We had vertical angles, which always are going to have a congruent relationship no matter what. We had linear pairs, and those linear pairs, no matter what, are going to have a sum that's equal to 180 degrees. This situation, this is constant. This is going on every time. These others, these were just classifications. Knowing that angles were corresponding didn't necessarily lead to a realization of any sort. That's the case if these two lines don't have a relationship. If we change the relationship of those lines, instead of being random, and we put those two lines as now being parallel, all right, the symbol for parallel would be an arrow on each. So if I now know my lines are parallel, and I have two parallel lines, and I still have my transversal, now I actually know a whole bunch more going on. I still have vertical angles. 2 and 4 are still going to be congruent. 3 and 4 are a linear pair. They're going to add up to 180 degrees no matter what. But now these four angles have a relationship with these four. All right. These corresponding angles now, so angles 1 and 8, if I knew that one of these angles was 100 degrees, all right, these corresponding angles down here are all going to, well, I'll get through that in a second. Let's just look at the vertical angles, 1 and 3, vertical. That means I got 100 degrees right here. 3 and 4, I said we're a linear pair, so if that's 100, this has got to be 80 degrees so that they add up to 180 degrees. Good news is 1 and 4 are also a linear pair. They add up to 180 degrees. 2 and 4 are vertical, and that's going to be 80 degrees. When these lines are parallel, I can pick up these four values and put them directly down on top of these. Now I'm going to have all of the matching angles be the same. What's referred to as the corresponding angles postulate. It says if the lines are parallel, then these angles are always going to be congruent. They claim that to be a postulate. It means it's supposed to be something that we kind of look at and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not willing to argue about that. If we look at alternate interior angles, 4 and 5 are alternate interior. Look, they're the same measure. All right, 3 and 8 are alternate interior angles. Look, they're the same measure. Turns out if my lines are parallel, then my alternate interior angles will also be congruent. If we skip down to the alternate exterior angles, if I look at 1 and 6, 1's 100 degrees, 6 100 degrees. Those are the same. 2 and 7, 80 degrees, 80 degrees. These will also be congruent. Where this ends up being different is with our same side interior angles. If we look at the same side interior angles, like 4 and 8, 4 and 8, they're not the same, but they add up to 180 degrees. The word for that is supplementary. And the good news is, and I've circled the letter S, an easy way to memorize which one is supplementary. It's the one that starts with the S's. We've got some alliteration going on here. That not only works for same side interior angles, but also works for the same side exterior angles. You see 1 is exterior and on the left side of the transversals. 7 is also exterior on the same side. They're also 180 degrees. So this means if I know one angle anywhere in this group of 8, I can actually find all 8. And where this kind of becomes maybe a little more difficult is when you get into a problem that looks a little bit more like this. If I have two parallel lines, and I got a transversal here, as long as I know that these are parallel, here's where this problem can be a little bit more difficult. If I knew that this angle was 4x plus 20 degrees and this angle was 8x minus 60 degrees, we would want to know about this relationship. The good news is everything that we looked at before, every situation, these angles are either the same or they're supplementary. So my recommendation, if you want to make it easy, is classify the angles first. These happen to be both on the exterior and they're on alternate sides of the transversal. These are alternate exterior angles. Since they're alternate exterior angles, these words aren't starting with S, so that means these aren't supplementary. They're congruent, which means I can set one of them equal to the other. Classifying helps me know which equation to write. So if I go with a quick solution, take 4x from both sides. If I add 60 to both sides and divide by 4, I find out x has a value of 20. Please make sure you understand that none of the angles up here measured 20. This is the value of x. If I want to find the measure of this angle, I would take x out and put in 20. So instead of 4 times x plus 20, I'm going to do 4 times 20 plus 20. This is 80 degrees plus 20. Turns out that this is 100 degrees, which means I can find every angle up here very quickly once I know the measure of one of them. I have those 4, pick them up, put them down here, and I know the measure of all 8 angles. Classify. That classification will lead to an equation. And even if I'm going to try and even simplify it even more, if your classification leads to corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, or vertical angles, that means the relationship, you have some congruent angles. If they're congruent, take one angle, set it equal to the other, and you should have a good equation ready to go. If you have same side interior, same side exterior, or a linear pair, those are going to be supplementary. Supplementary means your 2 angles have to add up to equal 180 degrees. These are the only 2 options that you have for equations to make in this situation. If you classify first, you should know what equation to write. If you can write a good equation, you can solve it. If you come up with the value of x, you should be able to answer any question that you might see on a quiz or a test. Hope that makes sense. Good luck on the homework.